Hi guys, welcome to this tactical video. This is the latest video in Sisters of Battle Tactics for 8th edition, and today I am talking about the Dialogus, which is an elite choice. So in 7th edition, the Dialogus, and in fact 6th edition before it, Dialogus wasn't really any use, and I don't know anyone who's ever taken a Dialogus other than in the absolute fluffiest of lists. And honestly, I've never faced a Dialogus on the table, the reason being all she did was just basically provide a loudhailer, which you could get on your vehicles, which are a much sturdier platform, much faster, much more likely to have more effect anyway, and people still didn't really take them. So, yeah, taking the Dialogos in your command squad, which, you know, could only be used if you had a Canoness, it just wasn't something that happened. Basically a waste of points for the most part. She didn't offer anything. But now it's 8th edition, and the Dialogus has changed. She is now her own elite slot, much like the Hospitaller and the Imagifier and the Mistress of Repentance, because of course command squads are no longer a thing. So what this means is you can take as many Dialoguses as you like, and still keep it battle-forged effectively, so long as you take that Vanguard detachment. The Dialogus herself has changed a little stat-wise. So what she actually has is movement 6, like all the other sisters, so that's decent. Weapon skill 4+, like a bog-standard battle sister. Ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 3. She's got 4 wounds, which is better than the old one she used to have. 2 attacks, which isn't bad. Leadership 8. And a 6+ save, so she doesn't have power armor. She comes equipped with a Dialogus staff, and the staff is just +1 strength. Does 1 damage, and it works like a power fist, so when you attack with it, you have -1 to hit. So what that actually means is she's hitting on a 5-up with 2 dice at strength 4, which isn't really going to do too much. But, you know, +1 strength, it's okay, I suppose. Now, notice she has ballistic skill 3+, but yet again, she doesn't even have so much as a grenade, just like the Hospitaller. This is because Dialogus and Hospitallers in the fluff aren't actually combat sisters, they are part of a non-combat order, and this has been reflected here, it seems. But yeah, it does mean that there's no upgrades for her either, so she has no shooting attack, and her melee attack hits on 5s, so she's worse than a Rhino in many ways, attacking, and you certainly don't deal with them in assault too often. She does have Acts of Faith, which means you could get her to attack twice if you wanted. Won't happen. You could get to shoot twice, but she doesn't have a gun. So you could get her to move twice, or you could heal her, which are the only ones worth using on her. She has the Shield of Faith special rule, just like everything else, which is good. That's basically the only thing she has, defensively speaking, because her armor save of 6+ is not great. And the reason she has a 6+ armor save instead of just nothing basically means if she's in cover, she can get that +1. So she can get a 5-up if she's sat in cover, which is, I suppose, it may be useful against some of the things coming her way, but don't expect her to survive very long. If someone wants her dead, she's going to die, and all it's going to take is like a couple of bolters in the right place, and that's going to deal with it. Okay, so what does she actually offer? She has a loudhailer, just as before, and this time it means that friendly Adeptus Sororitas units within 6 inches of her can reroll failed morale tests. Now, morale is a much bigger deal in 8th edition than it used to be in some ways. In other ways, it's actually less. The reason I say this is because in 8th edition, you have the 1 morale phase at the end if you lost models, and that's all morale factors in. Whereas in previous editions, there was lots of things that required a morale test or a leadership test and that kind of thing. But of course, we had many ways to make ourselves fearless. Bear in mind that most things in the Sisters army have leadership 8. That means if you suffer 2 casualties, or less, obviously, then you still cannot fail whatsoever. If you suffer 3 casualties, then at worst, and it's fairly low odds, you would lose 1 model, which you could probably deal with. And if you start losing more than that, then a reroll is not really going to help you at a certain point, and the remaining squad's going to be so small it doesn't make a difference. Or maybe you've just taken so much damage it's not going to matter anyway. So a reroll isn't that good when you have leadership 8. It's not too bad, but it's very it's going to be very specific where it's actually going to be useful. So what I would say is that the Dialogus really only has stuff to offer if you have a large squad that you can't afford to lose bodies in so much. And what I would say is for that, you're looking at the Blob squad. So a big Battle Sisters squad of 50 models, because it can't be 20 anymore. that's probably where you'd want Dialogus nearby. And of course you could bury her in the middle of the unit just like always. She is a character, so of course that means she can't be targeted unless she's the closest model, which will help her survive a little bit. However, a slight side note, at toughness 3 with a 6-up save, if you ever had snipers in your army, this is the kind of perfect target you'd want to shoot at, because they'll actually do some damage to her for a change. So yeah, watch out for those with her. Just keep her out of line of sight in those situations if need be. Or, use her to die and protect everyone else, but whatever. A slight aside note though. So yeah, in a big blob squad, you're more likely to take bigger losses overall, because there'll be more incoming fire, people want to deal with it. And of course, beyond a certain threshold, rolling badly on your morale test means that you'll suffer more casualties because you'll have enough models left over to actually take them. Whereas if you have a smaller squad, obviously, and you fail morale by a lot, it's just going to wipe the squad to a certain point, and any others would be wasted. So you feel the penalty of morale more. So having a reroll there is not a bad idea. Again, there's a certain point you're going to reach where you take so much damage, the reroll's not going to do anything. And for a much similar effect, you could take Uri Jacobus, who adds +1 to leadership, as well as +1 attack, but that doesn't really matter so much. But he adds +1 to leadership for all units within 6 inches, and that's actually going to do a lot more in the long run, because that basically saves 1 extra person every time you roll. And if you really wanted to, you could always use a command point to re-roll anyway. So I suppose those two combined in a big blob squad would be pretty good. But if I was going to do that, I would actually take 2 big blob squads. So I would have 2 15-girl Battle Sister squads marching up the table with Uriah and a Dialogus between them, and then you've got a fairly potent combination because you can save those command points for other things. That's when things start to get better. The other thing I should say is that the Dialogus herself is 1 power point if you're using power level, which is the cheapest it could possibly be. In terms of actual points, she's only 15 points, which is very cheap for a single character with 4 wounds. But obviously, we already know she's not got very good defenses, so it's not too surprising. Now, what you could do theoretically is, if you wanted many cannonesses or other cheap HQs, you could in fact fill out on those. You could even fill out on psychers and that kind of thing, but take a vanguard squad, and if you just wanted like 1 or something like that, take a vanguard squad with 3 Dialoguses and get the extra command points that way. It's a cheapish way of farming out extra command points, as well as getting some slight benefit for the Dialoguses. Probably not the best way of doing things. So I was thinking about this and the best way to use Dialogus, and maybe her intended role isn't actually the best way of doing it. With her being a character, she has the Heroic Intervention special rule. And I was thinking it could be possible to use her to actually tie up units in combat. So, for instance, she's probably going to die, but say if there's quite a shooty squad that's causing you problems that's fairly small in numbers, you could in fact use the Heroic Intervention rule after something else in your army's been charged. If she was close enough, then she could just pile in there, not be overwatched, and, just tie them up, and then they have to move away, which means they can't shoot on the next turn, and you could just keep doing that if you needed to. Effectively taking them out of the game as quickly as possible, and for a very, very cheap amount of points, so not bad. Having said that, she'd probably get squished after a couple of turns, even against the worser squads, because she just doesn't have enough going for her to not suffer damage, but, that's an option. Another thing you could do, in a similar vein, is you could charge her first into a squad to take Overwatch, and provided she survives the Overwatch, even if it's just 1 wound, she stops them overwatching something else which may be squishy. For instance, a Rampentia squad, or Death Cult Assassins or something like that. She can basically take the brunt for that. And for 15 points, that's not bad. That's not a bad option at all. So, yeah, I actually think rather than using her as a buffer in terms of her ability, I think she is a good throwaway unit to just tie things up with for a turn or 2. I honestly think that's probably the best way of using the Dialogus. Having said that, it's early days. I haven't tried playing one. I will at some point, and I'll have to come up with some builds at some point as well, which makes use of her, because depending on how the game develops, morale may become more important or more substantial than it currently is. But in the current state of the game as I see it, I don't see the Dialogus being a particularly decent choice for dealing with morale. I think we have other ones which are better. So that's basically it on the Dialogus, quite a short one this time. That's it for the individual characters for the Adepta Sororitas, so we'll be moving on to some of the other squads next. So if you like this video, remember to click like. If you have any questions, comments or feedback, any thoughts on the Dialogus and using her, then let me know below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more tactical videos in the near future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.